reality isn't what we think it is. Our thoughts and beliefs are absolutely dictating what is quote unquote real. 24/7, we can absolutely alter reality at will. We can collapse reality into any version that we want.
Dr. Stephen Young is a scientist, philosopher, and teacher of the Hermetic Laws.
Humans will transition from Homo sapien to Homo luminous.
Dr. Stephen Young. And have you ever heard of med beds? Because I'm pretty sure he just designed and is now producing med beds. But his magical knowledge is something that you're going to want to pay attention to. Here you go.
All of this is just really a remembering of what was instead of learning some new tactic.
What are we really remembering?
Our every thought, every emotion is broadcasting these light particles away from our body that carries a certain frequency. And we know that all humans have DNA receptors for these biophotons. So we're literally broadcasting our every thought and emotion into all of reality, just our innate capability of collapsing the infinite waves of light in infinite variations of the now into the exact version of the now that is exactly corresponding to who and what we are.
How do we train ourselves to give and receive more light? That seems like it's the ultimate code.
Well,
what is your both fascination and understanding about the fact that we're 70% light? And how does science not necessarily share, or do they share?
This is something I just learned recently as well. Not only are we 70% light, the reason we're 70% light because of H2O, but our H2O in our body is not H2O. It's actually called HEO3. I might have that opposite. What that means is our light, our water, is protons in our body, which goes through our blood system. And that makes us 80% light because our water is energy, is protons at the same time. Listen more to what this guy has to say. By the way, I may be interviewing him soon, so stay tuned.
Original research came out in the late 70s that our junk DNA actually makes biophotons, right? And so this information, in a way, has been hidden and not paid attention to for almost 50 years, right? And so my opinion is that I think humanity may not have been ready for this truth 50 years ago, that we're absolutely ready for it now.
Yeah.
Which is that we're mostly light beings. And a lot of the indigenous people have talked about that we're entering into a time where humans will transition from Homo sapien to Homo luminous, light beings. And it's happening as we speak.
In this moment.
In this moment.
The light beings is interesting because at first audible, somebody that maybe is more left brain driven. You talked about this in the course too. We're going to talk about the course all podcast. We're also going to go into some twists and turns, y'all, so buckle up. I love these conversations because they really push the edges of reality. And reality for me has always been one shattered glass after another. Whenever I think I've mastered something, my creator will come in and just decimate what I thought I knew. Do you find this to be the case when it comes to your own evolution?
Here, he's absolutely right. All of you think about it. Think of the past when your life fell apart. You lost a marriage, you lost a job, your children grew up, you were trying to have children, even with your childhood, with friends, with your parents. When was a time, if not several times, that you felt your lowest of lows? Those are times when you're actually leveling up. Listen.
A necessary experience of breaking through these barriers of reality, because we are so much more capable than what we've been taught in school. Right? And traditional education, I think most people can agree, was designed to contain us, not to expand. And so now from that containment, we get to expand. It's like the greatest game of what I call hide and seek with our divine selves, with our infinitely capable selves that we're playing.
Infinitely capable. On the table, if you're watching on the wide view on Spotify, what exactly is on the table?
Sure. It's a Atlantean piece of technology.
Something impossible. I know you can't name names. What's something impossible you've seen that was possible?
Yeah. Countless stories. Just recency bias. So 3 activations ago, which was 6 weeks ago, it's one of my favorite ones. This guy, when he came, his biggest life complaint was his relationship with his son has been fractured since their divorce 3 years ago. It's a nasty divorce, legal battle. The mother's like, your dad's an a-hole, don't talk to him. So you can imagine that splinters the relationship.
The worst.
Right? And so without reaching out to the sun, without doing a vision board, without any kind of manifesting typical make your wish, get your desire process. He simply just took in the codes. 2 days in of a 3-day experience, his son calls him and they have their first loving conversation in 2 years without any act on his end. Right. And so he, of course, takes it as a coincidence. For myself, this is just what happens.
This happens
all the time. And the next miracle is the best part, which is at the last evening of this experience at dinner, he gets a text message and he's sitting next to me. Right? He's looking at his phone. I'm looking over. I'm like, hey, why aren't you mingling with all the humans? And he shows me this picture. And it's a picture of his son, a recent picture of his son sent to him by a text message from his mom. Right. And when I see it, I'm like, oh, that's great. Your mom's confirming that your relationship with your son has been now repaired, right? And then he goes, but she died 2 years ago. The message came during dinner from his mom, who passed away 2 years ago, with a recent picture of his son. This is a great example of our reality isn't what we think it is.
What I learned from the course is that everything is dual, right? Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has a pair of opposites. So that would definitely explain part of the text, but not all of it. There's something like that.
Meaning
which laws were making that happen, essentially.
Sure.
There's no logical framework where a deceased person is sending a text. It's just not in our current realm of reality.
I would say if I had so just every religious wisdom or text that I read, my brain at this point, 15 years in, I just go, oh, that's the law of this combined. It's just a permutation of the 7, basically. And so in this situation, I would say it's a combination of the law of mentalism, right? All things come from the mind, which means our thoughts and beliefs are absolutely dictating what is quote unquote real, right? And so if his mind, his thoughts, and his...
He will also mention, if you watch the full podcast, it's over 2 hours long, and I'm going to put the link down there, but there's also feeling. And you can read a book called The Secret of Feelings by Neville, Neville. It was written in 1944. In fact, I'll put the link down there as well. You can find that on YouTube. It's only a 30-minute read. So the YouTube audio book version is only 30 minutes. It's worth checking out.
Ingredient in this process, right? Which is, right, the phrase is, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. But the context, the code, right, the secret sauce to this is, I love you, God. And if God doesn't resonate, you can replace that with source, universe, spirit, whatever.
Just to add some context to this, he is reframing the Hawaiian prayer.
Right. In this case, I'm just going to use God for simplicity. So it's, I love you, God. And the second phrase, right, is, I'm sorry I have not recognized your love and divine orchestration in every moment of my life. Please forgive me. Thank you. What I find is that when you live as that vibration, where you acknowledge that every moment in your life, when you were in pain, suffering, grieving, and in joy and bliss, that every moment was orchestrated and loved by God. When you live from that place, it's like you're automatically tapping into source code.
He also mentions in this interview that God is in all of us. God loves all of us, loves everything. And there is no one thing that he's created that he will ever stop loving. And therefore, it doesn't matter where you are, where you're coming from, how you love, the way that you love, or who you are. God is not going to punish, in a sense, but that we are the ones that punish ourselves. We are the ones through karma put ourselves in certain positions life after life. Now, I've always told my clients that every lifetime is like a year in human. So for instance, you're in grade 1, you're in a lifetime. That's one lifetime. You graduate, you die, you are reborn into grade 2, another lifetime, into all the way to grade 8, grade 12, university, etc. Now, the way that I perceive this as well is that because I'm in grade 8 doesn't make me better or smarter or at a higher level than you are because you are in grade 1. You could actually be a very smart, witty, clear-minded, kind, caring person in grade 1. And in grade 8, I could be behind the 8 ball. I've got a lot of mistakes that I've made under my belt. I am an angry person who can't manage my temper, and that makes me a lower vibration of the grade that I am in. So if that makes sense to you, you can understand that there's no real leveling up or leveling down. There are more side by side, more layers that go side by side. We're all on the same playing field.
Back to your viewpoint of there's nothing to fix. Mm-hmm. We've already won. We're already here. There is no zoo. I intellectually understand that. And a part of me understands it as well. That's not just my mind. Mm-hmm. So I just want to preface that and respect that. Yet we still have at times residue of stuff that we thought we've healed. That's happened for me for sure. Sure. Can you walk us through that? Because it seemed to me like when you had shared with me earlier that there was still some residue from even potentially connected to 32 and onward.
I don't want to suggest that you get to a point where you're just not doing anything. We will always spiritually, emotionally, mentally evolve forward. We just evolve forward from what I call the current version of divine perfection to the next version of divine perfection.
I like
that wants to work on themselves. You want to work on it's almost like if our physical body was the radio, right? You want to tune the radio, the dial, and all the things, but you also want to recognize the signal is not housed in the radio. Signal is floating through the ether. So our consciousness is actually floating through the ether. It's not localized.
So this term, the cloud, I find that funny because the cloud isn't actually a cloud. It's connected to servers that are buried in football fields underground. Yet there's still this magical thing that happens. We were sitting here 10 days ago, having a conversation with my phone off, completely off. And in our conversation, Siri says, "You're welcome." You can't make this up, y'all. That actually happened. I'm just like, I'm still laughing. I got home and I told Carrie that and she was like, "What?"
Well, I've had the opportunity to sit in front of some incredible elders, right? They're considered living saints in like Hindu, sort of religion / philosophy. And when we ask them questions, for sure, the answer is never just the answer.
They're not just going to give you the answer.
No, they're not going to make it easy. A story that contains infinitely other questions and answers within the story. Sure. So I've been on the receiving end of that. And I remember about a year and a half ago at one of the experiences I was running, someone actually jokingly in a kind way said, "For the love of God, Stephen, can you actually just answer the question?"
Really big part of you as a human. There's the 6 words you don't mention. You committed to that for a decade. And I'm noticing more and more and more every day, Stephen, the power of language. It's a prayer. It's a spell. Just being in your presence, we're osmotically learning from each other. We're osmotically receiving and giving light, information at the same time. That's why I love podcasting. It's so cool. It's so fun. Yet, yes, and if someone has had their parents speak to them in a certain way that encoded their reality, it can be almost like turning a battleship. It doesn't have to be. I'm not saying it has to be that hard, but it can be many times like turning a battleship. Is there a way that you work with people without having to directly tell them, sit down, stand up, that can turn that internal battleship for them when it comes to language? Because language is so powerful, and it's a paradox. Language is not spoken about enough. It's really not. It's what all the Napoleon Hill and Wallace Wattles and all the great teachers, I guess you could say, of the early 1900s, they were very focused on language. Same thing with Bob Proctor. Love Bob Proctor. They all had really good things to share, but
what I offer is to cherish the density and the contraction in the programming that they were experiencing when they were young that kept them contained.
To cherish
it, first and foremost. Because, right, it's pendulum. Let's say if we pull the pendulum 9 out of 10, 9 units to one side of contained, boxed in, non-spiritual, controlled language. At some point, when you let go of that, what's going to happen? It gets to swing 9 units to the other side. So I think the first step is to love, thank your parents, thank those that are in control, thank whoever created the industrial complexes that we're in, thank them because they allow that pendulum to be pulled so far to one side. You have all that kinetic and potential energy.
I cannot tell you how many times I've had to remind myself, and I've also reminded many of my clients that your parents, you birthed yourself to your parents for 3 different reasons, basic reasons. 1 is karmic. You've had relationships with them before in past lives. 2 is that they're here to help you let go of karma. And 3, you want to learn lessons. So as he talks about the pendulum, let's say that you want to learn how to love yourself. You've had many lifetimes where you've relied on other people to love you. You've been loved by other people. There's been a lack of self-nurturing and maybe a lack of independence. And so in this lifetime, you're like, I'm going to sign up for a lifetime in which I am forced to have to find the love within myself because I'm not going to find it outside of myself. Therefore, you may have a parent that goes, I'll help you do that. I'll be the one that really doesn't love you as much as you would like to. Or you're going to hook yourself up with someone who you've had karmic relationships with before that didn't love you very much, that weren't good at it, or they need to learn the effects. Okay, cause and effects. That's karma, is they need to learn what happens to somebody when you don't provide them with another amount of love. So that is one end of the pendulum, because you're getting such an extreme amount of abandonment, lack of love, lack of care, lack of nurturing. And then he says, if you let it go, you're going to swing it back. But what if you don't let it go? What if you love your parents for showing you what it's like to not receive love from outside of you and to force you to look within yourself? Now, some people do end up in very severe situations. They can end up with drug addictions, escape issues, ways of burying that pain, escaping that pain, and numbing that pain. But that's still a very important part of the lesson. So let's continue to listen to this one.
To really appreciate and be like in such bliss and joy when you start to use the language of freedom if you weren't so contracted.
Yeah.
So that's the first and foremost, is to love it, because
so good.
That's the art of polarity. That is one of the Hermetic rules is polarity. So you're not going to understand one side if you did not experience the other side. You can never understand what it's like to be cold if you're never hot. If you're always neutral, everything was neutral all the time, you wouldn't know what hot is and you wouldn't know what cold is. You would just know what this is. It is what it is. You wouldn't even know that it's comfortable because you'd never know the extreme of hot or cold.
bad. No, we honor it because everything at some point is God. God orchestrated that. So why would we not love that? So first and foremost, love it. And then from that love, it goes back to you just, with the greatest joy, love this ride of like, we get to use language of the expressions of freedom and all that stuff.
And that's the part that I've been struggling with, is like we're growing at such an exponential rate. And if you look at technology, it's just full hockey stick. That we have absolutely no idea. It's kind of exciting at the same time too. It's like I'm watching a big theater unfold. This is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
But there's also a touch of sadness for me too, because I don't want people to suffer. I don't want this bifurcation to exist. I have a resistance to it, is what I'm sharing with you. Did you ever
to help them?
What was so special about The Shack?
It's one of my favorite movies. I've seen it now 14 times. Basically meets God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit in physical form. And they basically tell him, we've been orchestrating everything for you.
They just tell him, you're good.
In a roundabout way. It's done beautifully. Again, I've seen it 14 times. And every time that I watch it, sometimes it's just a look from one of the actors. Sometimes it's a line. Sometimes it's a scene. Every time I get some kind of life-changing aha from it.
The way in which I guess you could say overcome or heal addiction isn't by going back and wishing that it didn't happen or trying to fight that it happened. It's actually the journey of just accepting that it happened and giving ourselves the permission to feel the feelings. Yet, unless I'm hanging around with people that aren't glorifying porn, my whole upbringing for 20 plus 30 years was like, porn is normal. Look at what's on Instagram now with girls' tits and asses.
Because I have 11 years of data, at some point, once they, especially when they embody these Hermetics, they magically attracted a man who was able to be such a strong masculine container that allow their system to restore. And so it's a fascinating thing to witness that the story that I make is they needed that experience so that the masculine that they were calling in the male could have such a vigilant system for them to fully step into their full masculine to allow that system to soften. I've seen this over and over again, so it's really interesting. So I just want to offer sort of that, which really goes back to everything is divinely orchestrated, basically, right? Having said that, in my own experience, almost every partner I've had has had that experience. And everyone has been a journey for me to realize that there was a boy in me that wanted love. And as long as that boy in me that wanted love wasn't fully loved by me, that I could not hold a strong enough masculine container that it allows my female partner to be 100% safe. time in human history where if one person wanted to take another person's life, wanted to murder them, that the other person would gladly give their life because they'd be like, oh, I'll just come back as a blank in my next life, right? And so it's such a great story about there was a time in human history with basically murder was welcomed. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
I come at you with a knife, I'm going to kill you. And you, at a certain time in human history, would be like, that's amazing. You can take it. I'll just be reincarnated and I'll come back and I'll be a blank. I would just choose to be a blank in my next life, and there'll be no fight.
So what do you think of that, where you would welcome murder? And there was human sacrifices, and there was humans who actually was an honor. It was an honor for them to be the one that they were going to be thrown to the wolves or thrown into the volcano as a human sacrifice. So I know what he's talking about is to be true, but no, can you do it and I won't suffer too much? That would be good. But that's a mindset that we have right now. What do you think? That statement that he made about murder, how do you feel about that?
Yes, you've had pains, sufferings, hardships, but the moment we get to honor those pains and allow yourself to fully feel that pain and feel that grief, that energy moves through you. And as that energy moves through you and gets transmuted, there's this byproduct of wisdom that comes. And that byproduct of wisdom are these new codes that come in that then unlocks the most miraculous life that can come.
Life can change in an instant. I 100% agree with that. And while we go through the pain, we sit with the pain, we work with the pain, the silver lining or the gold at the end of the rainbow is wisdom. But we often don't know what that wisdom looks like, what it feels like, or how it's going to be when we live in that new wisdom. What'd you think of this podcast? Again, all the links are below. Take a look at it. Listen to the whole thing. It's quite inspiring. And I look forward to interviewing Dr. Stephen. And subscribe to this channel or subscribe to this podcast or Substack so that you can be notified when he does. Namaste.